What's up, my friends, and welcome back to another edition of the Run It Back podcast. Thanks so much for hanging out with us wherever you get your podcast, whether you're watching us here on YouTube or listening on any of the audio-only platforms. Thanks so much for being a part of your Wednesday with us. Tyler, Zulli, Frank Klose back with you for another week of Phillies baseball, and a pretty productive week overall, at least in terms of the win column, as the Phillies have an opportunity today to sweep out the Miami Marlins in a 3-game series after taking the first two Monday and Tuesday. And it's been a relatively, I feel like I've said this a couple of times over the last few weeks now, but a relatively productive week in terms of wins and losses for the Phillies, who continue to play well, at least in the win column, under Don Mattingly since the interim manager has taken over, and another chance today to sweep out the series and a divisional series at that. It feels like it's been forever, Frank, since we've said the Phillies are playing a division rival, but they finally have a NL East opponent at hand, and more importantly, finally, we'll play the New York Mets this weekend.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of this reduced divisional action that they've gone to recently. I need the 18-19 games, Tyler. I don't think this is enough.
It is strange. Like there's a part of me that's like, hey, it's nice to get to see some of the teams that, like I still remember interleague play. As a kid, interleague play was, really starting to take up steam. And I always thought it was kind of cool to see, who are they playing this year? Are they going to Boston? Are they going to New York? Are they, do they get to make a West Coast trip? And it was always kind of a cool thing where they had that batch of games in late June or late July after the All-Star break where they'd play some AL teams. I do like the fact that we get to see some of the other American League teams. We got to see the White Sox, who are playing some really good baseball. Got to see the White Sox. Get to see Cleveland with an incredible pitching staff. That's a cool thing to me. But at the detriment to, it is June 17th and the Phillies and Mets have not played a game yet this year. That's a weird thing. I mean, we are almost halfway through the season at this point, and the Phillies and Mets have not played each other.
And you've watered down it's really neat they're playing the Angels because at this point now you see them every year and it's just like, okay, whatever.
Well, and I think too, this would have been great in an era pre-internet, in an era pre-social media, in an era MLB.com field package or whatever it's called, right? Like when you were looking up box scores and understanding, who other teams in the American leagues were by reading the paper and, and getting your box scores, this would have made total sense. It almost feels inverse because you and I and everybody who has Baseball Savant at their fingertips has access to every player and every team in the world. And so I almost feel like it's almost inverse where now we have access to all of these players. I almost don't need them as much as I would have in the late 90s, early 2000s when they were playing 15 interleague games.
I can watch any team I want all season long. I mean, this is
while you're watching the Phillies on your big screen.
Yes, exactly. I'm with you there. They didn't. I don't think they needed to do this. I think there are some ways. I've scribbled them down in the past how to balance the schedule at least somewhat so that it's competitive in the division. But yeah, you really need these divisional games to really matter. And I know they kind of tuck some down the stretch for that theatrical factor. But
which
by
I do like, by the way, I think is a good idea. But there has to be a balance of the stretch between the two.
Yeah, I mean the Phillies didn't need to play the Braves twice that quickly back to back.
Right.
And then not see them again until September. If you're going to do some September series or if you're going to do only 4 series total, spread them out over the 6 months a little more evenly.
Yeah, I would agree with you. So not a whole lot to get into in terms of the Marlins series. They have been the better team in this series. Zach Wheeler said after his start he didn't think he was very good, and he just went 6 shutout innings, which is just so typical Zach Wheeler. I thought Jesus Luzardo, other than the 2-run home run, I thought Luzardo was really good. He's pitched extremely well against the Marlins over his 2 starts this year against them. I thought he was really good last night as well. And they've scored runs. They've scored a ton of them. They jumped on Tyler Phillips last night. They scored 5 in the game on Monday night. And this is probably as complete of a series as we've seen so far from them through the first 2 games in quite some time.
Yeah, it's almost a little boring because they get such a lead early. You're like, okay, well, they're just going to cruise. I mean, aside from that 2-run home run, trying to get Luzardo through the seventh. I mean, there really wasn't much going on after a while.
And, good opportunity. You see Max Lazar, you see Chase Shugart, some of the lower leverage relievers. I thought Jonathan Bolin in Monday night's game was incredible. I know it was a very anticlimactic inning after all, but I thought he topped out at 100. I don't know if that was
Yeah.
truly 100, but he topped out at 100.
Yeah, when you consider how Matt Strom is doing out in Kansas City,
Yeah.
you might be thinking this trade looks pretty good.
It's starting to swing in their favor for sure. All right, let's get into the crux of the big conversation today, and that is obviously the Phillies made a trade for an outfielder. They acquired Derek Hill this past week, but the Phillies, according to Bob Nightingale, are still right field hunting, and it's no surprise that Bob has said this. It's no surprise we have said this. It's no surprise anybody who has watched the Phillies, even pre Adolis Garcia injury, pre knowing he's hitting the 60-day IL, pre-knowing that that's probably the end of his season, I would imagine. Bob Nightingale said this the other day, quote, "The Phillies are desperately looking to acquire an outfielder at the trade deadline, with Adolis Garcia expected to miss the rest of the season with a torn lat, and have Angels right fielder Joe Adell and Cubs right fielder Seiya Suzuki on their radar." Not a surprise that the Phillies are looking for right-handed right field help. Joe Adell is a guy that I had on my radar last year, and I think he almost outpriced himself by being so good in the second half of the season post All-Star break, probably down to more of the player that we know him to be this year. Not surprised that Joe Adell is on the radar, but I did a video the other day about Seiya Suzuki. I am a little bit surprised that Suzuki's name came up for a handful of different reasons. But before we get into any of it, do you have any interest in either of these guys heading into the trade deadline as we get a little bit closer?
Well, I mean, they're not the sexy names. I think they're the pretty good names. But this is a Phillies team that just needs anything they can squeeze out of a right-handed bat. I mean, so I'm kind of not that picky at this point. If you have somebody with a pulse who hits right-handed and will do better than 250, and by the way, neither of these are much better than 250. It's added value compared to what they have. So I get the impression that, and Todd Zalecki talked about this a little bit the other day on the radio in Philadelphia. He was saying that the Phillies are probably not going for the big names. They don't want to, not even that they want to trade the prospects. They don't have the prospects, right? I mean, when you consider that you had a couple of them graduate in Crawford and Painter, they're on your major league roster now. And then, of course, Aiden Miller is hurt. And then you get down to your next level of prospect. You're probably talking Gage Wood is the best prospect that you have right now in the organization that can play. So they're not trading him. I get that impression. Then their next best prospect is a 17-year-old they just signed this winter. I mean, he's not going to be traded to anybody, probably because, one, the Phillies need to see him grow, and two, his target date for the majors is 2031. So I think that the Phillies are in a tough spot right now. They maybe Ron Escobar, maybe Dante Nori. Beyond that, I don't think they've got a lot to trade. So you need to be looking for, I want to say, marginal improvements. I mean, you want it to be some margin, but I don't think they've got what it takes to land a big bat. I mean, I think they either have to trade the Noris and Escobars of the world to get players like Adele and Suzuki, or they just have to take back a bunch of money. Pick one of the giants that makes a lot of money that bats right-handed.
Right.
I think that those are their two options right now.
Yeah, I think that the weird thing to me is I think that Seiya Suzuki, based on his contract, costs a little bit less than what Joe Adell will, because Joe Adell has a year of arbitration this year, a year of arbitration next year, and is not a free agent until the end of the 2027 season. Seiya Suzuki feels like a less likely opportunity to me for this reason. The Cubs still find themselves, even after losing 10 straight games, even after not playing well since the calendar has flipped to May, they still find themselves squarely in the postseason hunt. Now, I know that there's still 85, 90 games left to play, but I do believe the Cubs believe that they still can be a postseason team even after that slide. So if the Cubs are looking to move Seiya Suzuki, which, by the way, he has a no-trade clause, full no-trade clause, so he has to revoke that before anything happens. If the Cubs are looking to move Seiya Suzuki, believing that they are a postseason team, well, what are they going to go after? Starting pitching. Their pitching's been a disaster this year. Shota Imanaga has been worse than he was last year. Jamison Tyone, same thing. Matthew Boyd's been hurt since May. Edward Cabrera has been underwhelming since they've made the trade. Their starting pitching's just been very bad overall. I think they're like 27th in baseball in starting pitching ERA. The Phillies don't have any starting pitching depth, as you just mentioned, to move. And so if Suzuki's going to be a trade piece, the Cubs would want major league ready starting pitching, which the Phillies don't have to offer. Meanwhile, the Angels are 30-44. That would be a team that would probably be interested in taking on prospects for a player like Joe Adell. While the prospects may be more in terms of quantity and perhaps quality because of the contract availability, like you could move, like a guy that's moved quickly through the ranks has been really good, has been Ramon Marquez. Maybe Marquez is the type of starter that the Angels would look for in exchange for a year and a half of Joe Adell. So while I think Suzuki probably is the better player, I think Adell has a better chance of being acquired based on the parameters of their situations.
Yeah, I'm with you there. I mean, if you think back to the last couple deadlines, they tried to get the righty platoon bats that will hit against lefties, and that's been about it. I mean, the Baders, the Austin Hayeses. By the way, both of them may be available.
Don't mention that name in this space.
Yes, but that seems to be where they're shopping. I mean, it's not something I think they want to spend on, which is frustrating, I suppose, because everybody wants the big right-handed bat, but beyond those two you just mentioned, they're probably the best names out there. I mean, there's a dearth of right-handed bats, as we've spoken about in the past, and I don't know where they're going to get one. I mean, it's going to be very, very costly. I think it's going to be one of those things where in the future, if the teams that are recognizing they really need to add it in an off season, they'll go for a big spend. I suppose they'll overpay compared to what a lefty bat will cost, and that's just because it's supply and demand, right? So I think that's the type of move you'll get in an off season at some point, since you can't develop one yourself, apparently. But right now, I think that's exactly what you're shopping for, and those might be some of the best names that potentially could be available. But I agree with you. I don't think the Cubs are out. I don't think they're going to give up. I see the Cubs. I personally see the Cubs adding. I mean, I know they fell kind of hard after dominating early. The other team to lose 10 games in a row. But hey, like the Phillies, I think they still have a lot of talent in them, and I think that they might try to supplement what they have with some more talent and try to go for this thing. So Suzuki might not be available.
Yeah, so here's Suzuki's numbers. This is from yesterday. So yesterday's game was not included in this. 251, as you said, right at that 250 mark, right? That's kind of what you're looking at. The 427 slug, I think, is a little bit misleading because he had a dreadful month of May that really pushed everything down. Like he had a solid month of April. He's been very, very good in the month of June. Now, I know he had that injury, that cost him a couple of games, but I think he's been back in the lineup for the Cubs. But those numbers there, like you see the 10 home runs, and I had somebody comment on one of my videos the other day. It was like, oh, he only has 10 home runs at this point. That's so much power, blah, like mockingly. And I'm like, listen, I get it. He doesn't have the 32 home runs and 103 RBI pace that he had last year, right? And I also know his OPS is down. I know that his exit velos are down. I know his barrel rates are down. Like, this has not been as good of a year for Seiya Suzuki as it was last season. But I think a lot of that is due in large part to his dreadful month of May. And if you take the average of the 3 months, you probably have a better player than what May showcases. And I think we've seen for a while, he's a pretty consistent right-handed bat. His defense has gotten a little bit better as his career has gone on. I was reading an article on him as to why that is, and they really attribute that to a much better first step over the last couple of years. In fact, I was looking at jumps because I was doing some stats on Joe Adell, whose defense is like the weirdest defense you'll ever see ever. But Seiya Suzuki is ranked third in baseball this year in positive first step jump with an average of 4 feet on average, above average. Pete Crow Armstrong is one of the two guys that are better than him, and that's like he might be one of the best defenders on the planet at this current moment. So that's kind of in the company that he has been in. So his defense has gotten better. He's a pretty consistent hitter, even with a bad month of May. He's a very good piece for a postseason team, which I think includes the Chicago Cubs at this point.
Yeah, I'm with you on that one, and I think that yeah, if you look at his numbers, he had a great April, really tough May, and a really strong June. So in fact, April I was expecting him to start slower because he had that injury in the WBC, if
Right.
you might remember, at the very end. So I think that you're looking at somebody you have to consider like an Alec Bohm right now. Is Bohm playing better than his month of April showed? I think we would all say yes, right? So I
Sure.
think we need, if we think about this in terms of Suzuki and put in the month of May instead. Yeah, I think what matters more is what you're going to get down the stretch and not what bad month he had in the past. So again, the numbers on the back of the baseball card can be deceiving at times because one bad month can really tear you down. But you really just have to have the confidence that he's going to continue.
So let's take a look at Joe Adell for just a second. I mean, they're eerily similar numbers. Now, Adell has played more games than Suzuki, as you mentioned. Suzuki had that injury in the WBC, but Adell 256. The slug is down it's down to 401. 10 home runs, just like Suzuki. A couple extra base hits. 41 RBI for Adell through 71 games. He's on a 22 home run, 90 RBI pace, which obviously would be less in both categories than what he did last year. The OPS is down. The slug is down. That's kind of the bad. And then, of course, he's never going to be a high OBP guy because he's literally in the first percentile of walk rate this year. There are only two qualified players that have fewer walk percentages than he does. And I'll put it to you at this point. You brought up Alec Bohm. We think about Alec Bohm and we go, this guy literally never walks because he's so free swinging and first pitch swinging. Alec Bohm is at 6.5% walk rate. Joe Adell is in the high twos. So for a guy that never walks, he's almost triple what Joe Adell is. So if you care about OBP, then you're probably not a big Joe Adell guy. But the power is there. Hits lefties. He's 321 against lefties this season so far. Has been really, really good with runners in scoring position. And to me, I think if you gave me either of these two guys, I would take both. I think the more realistic chance, because the Angels are once again terrible, Adell makes probably more sense.
Just remember that the Angels are terrible at making trades when they're supposed to make trades, right? So will they even do it?
It's true.
I can't figure out this Angels team under Arte Moreno's ownership. And I mean, they should have traded Shohei Ohtani, should have traded Mike Trout several years ago and had a good organizational reset, and they're just stubborn. So I don't know what they're doing. So that's the other half of this.
So I'm going to give you a number here. To me, the most important number for how much this Phillies team has struggled, righties, especially against left-handed pitching. But Joe Adell is hitting 343 with 30 RBI with runners in scoring position. Do you know how many Phillies right-handed hitters have more RBIs with runners in scoring position than Joe Adell's 30?
Right-handed hitters?
Right-handed hitters.
Nobody?
It's Alec Bohm has more.
Okay, he would be my guess if I had to guess one.
He has 32. Do you know how many players on the team have more RBI with runners in scoring position this year than Joe Adell's 30?
2.
The answer is still 1.
Oh, geez.
It's still Alec Bohm. I believe Brandon Marsh is second with 29. It goes to show you how bad Trea Turner has been because Kyle Schwarber has like 20, which is absurd for a guy who has 25 home runs. But to your point, like to the point of, the lack of productivity from righties, especially with runners in scoring position, while like 250 and 10 home runs doesn't, set the world on fire, he certainly would be an additional piece from the right side against left-handed pitching for this team.
Now, by the way, since we keep mentioning Bohm, are you okay with Bohm now? I mean, we were talking about third base as a place to upgrade.
Yeah, I think I'm okay enough. And the reason is not because I think Alec Bohm has been incredible, and he's been much better, no doubt. I think they have too many other holes that they need to fill. To me, the right-handed outfield piece is more important than upgrading Alec Bohm. To me, quite frankly, I think adding another starter is more important than upgrading Alec Bohm. I almost feel at this point adding another left-handed reliever is more important than upgrading Alec Bohm. Like I don't think Alec Bohm is like this is Alec Bohm's final year in Philly. I would almost guarantee that. But I think at this point, I take what I get from him because I think that there are other needs, and they're not going to be able to address all of them at the trade deadline.
Yeah, yeah, and I think too that reconstruction is too heavy a lift to do during the season, as well with Bohm, especially since things are going better. And in terms of the clubhouse, I would rather them not disrupt that at this point, I think.
So if
But
if you had to rank them, outfield, presumably right field, third base, starting pitching, left-handed reliever, what do you think is the priority?
I think it's the right-handed bat. I think there's still some negotiation where you can get it. How creative are you going to be? Um, this is not a move. In fact, can I throw something else at you that's
Sure.
sort of related to this general question? Do you get the bat wherever you can get it, and then make somebody change positions, or do you say, if you know what, maybe you feel like you need to grab Willie Adames just because he's the right-handed bat you can get? Do you say, hey Trey, I need you to go back to the outfield? That's where you played in DC for a while.
Yeah, that's. I guess it depends on the circumstance, right? Because the one that people immediately turn to is does Bryce Harper go back to the outfield, right? And I think that probably is not going to happen.
Yeah.
I just think that he's pretty cemented at first base. Um, I don't know. I like to say Trea Turner. He's not been good enough to say, "Hey, that's immediately your spot," and don't worry about it. But I also do wonder how it impacts the team. Like, is he good enough defensively in the outfield to make that play? You know what I mean? I hate to take this answer. I genuinely don't know how I feel about that question.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's comparable to the Harper thing at this point too. I mean, because he hasn't done it for so long.
Right.
It's not like you can just flip a switch and then all of a sudden everybody is just going to be just fine. I mean,
Trea Turner's been problematic at the top of the lineup. Like we've talked about that plenty. And he sat yesterday due to the wrist injury. And I'm not going to say it was not real because he got hit by the pitch, but it did really feel like this is an excuse to sit you down for a day because you're not playing well. His chase rates have been dreadful. His impact at the top of the lineup has effectively been non-existent. And I just think his approach has been off for months now. And I'm not going to say it's a long-term thing where he's going to get less at bats, but I do think there's a scenario in which if he was playing well, you might have seen him play yesterday.
yeah, I do think this though. Even before the wrist thing, Don Mattingly kind of set up him getting a day off. I think he did say, "Oh yeah, we want to get the guys off their feet this
Right.
week," that kind of thing. Thus, Bryce Harper DHing and Kyle Schwarber at first base, right? So, by the way, what do you like better, Kyle Schwarber at first base or Kyle Schwarber in left field?
Probably Kyle Schwarber at first base. It feels like there's more margin for error over there.
Yeah. Well, that's the other thing too.
Neither is the answer, but
Yeah, I'm just to your point about everybody talking about moving Harper to the outfield. Well, is this going to become okay? Well, we'll put Schwarber at first, put Harper in the outfield, and then get another out. Or
no,
I don't
thank
know.
you.
I just as soon put. Would you tolerate Schwarber in the outfield for 2 months if you needed to?
I guess like if I had to, and it helped you get another bat, that would probably be one where I could make it work, right? He played left field the year they went to the World Series for a
Poorly,
portion of the
but
year,
he did.
right? Poorly, very poorly. Like one of the worst defenders I've ever seen poorly, and he'll probably be the first to tell you that.
Yeah,
But
thanks to Harper's injury, they had him and Castellanos in the outfield at the same time.
bad. But I think like of the hypothetical scenarios, that's one I guess I could live with. I
That
don't
makes
like
this
it,
Christian.
but I could live with it.
I mean, it depends how desperate they get for this offense. I
Yeah.
mean, a Christian Walker maybe fits the profile, but
Well,
again,
and then I guess the other question would be, obviously we've talked plenty about them needing a right-handed bat. If they have the ability to go get better, and get better means getting a left-handed player, I don't think they should hesitate just because he hits left-handed.
There you
Like
go.
the name I've wanted for 3 years now and is starting to finally circulate because his team is not playing well. I have been on the Phillies should trade for Wilyer Abreu train for 3 years, and everybody's retort is, well, he's left-handed. And I go, I know he is, but he makes you better. Like if Wilyer Abreu becomes available, I wouldn't hesitate to make that type of play.
Yeah. What's better, Abreu in left field or Edmundo Sosa in left field? I mean,
Right.
I think that's the choice that you have right now. And yeah, he is. By the way, he has reverse splits. I don't know if you realize this. This year he's batting 380 against left-handed
That's
left-handed
wild.
pitching. So I mean, his OPS is 766 overall, but 919 against lefties. So maybe Abreu is the name that you need to be looking at. You can put him in right field and then keep Marsh in left.
Yeah, I think that would probably be my play is Marsh Crawford and Abreu, and then Derek Hill. Derek Hill can be a fine fourth outfielder because he gives you defensive flexibility, gives you speed off the bench.
He's Johan Rojas, but not suspended and hurt.
And I would say he's probably I would take him as a little bit of a better hitter.
Yeah.
But you're right. Like,
but that's the function. They found
right.
somebody to replace the Rojas they thought they were going to get back.
Right. And obviously it wasn't Dylan Moore like they had hoped it would be. I think, and I will say this, I think that in the interim, I think they ended up making the right move by calling Gabriel Rincones up as opposed to rehashing Otto Kemp and rehashing Felix Reyes again. My thought has always been it might stink, but it's a little bit of a different stink if it happens that way. And at least you're taking a shot. Now, he hit his first home run the other night, drove in 2 in the game. I don't know what his future holds. I think that there's a chance he could be a 20 home run guy given enough run. But I think in the interim, they made the right decision by calling him up.
Yeah, I agree with you. I'm actually a big Rincones fan. I was really impressed by him last spring. Now, unfortunately, he was hurt. He didn't get this spring. He only had a cup of coffee at AAA, really. So you really don't know where he's at. I mean, that's the problem with calling up Rincones. But you know what? They're taking a shot because I felt like that Reyes Baroa Kemp train was just going to keep cycling through time and time again, and that none of that was really the answer. So Rincones, he kind of the scouts say he's kind of an average outfielder, like not that that's bad, like he could do the job kind of outfielder.
Sure.
And generally projected him to maybe be a platoon bat, but they say he's going to have massive power against right-handed pitching. So yeah, that's an asset you can use. So I am happy they rolled the dice a little bit. We'll see where it goes.
Now, obviously, the injury derailed this conversation a little bit, but living in a hypothetical world, my belief was if he were right-handed, take the injury aside for a second. If he were right-handed, I think there's a really good chance he's the starting right fielder in 2026 on opening day. You may not even have to have the Adolis Garcia conversation. If Rincones were right-handed, I think that they would have just, sure, it would have been maybe a little bit questionable to play 2 rookies in center and in right. But I do think that there was a chance that could have been the case if he were a right-handed hitter. I think his only detriment is he's a left-handed hitter on a left-handed hitting lineup.
Yeah, I mean, but you know what? That's where they're at. I mean, they've got right-handed hitter in Felix Reyes, and Reyes has a lot of power at AAA. Is he a quadruple A player? Is he someone that can contribute to the major leagues? I think that no one really knows at the moment. So I mean, I wouldn't be shocked. I mean, his problem is he needs to play a position, right? So
right.
I mean, he's up to 16 home runs at Lehigh Valley right now. So he's got the power. I see Reyes as somebody that might go in a deal. Maybe somebody who's got first base open. Maybe they'll take him and give him a shot just to see what they have. But it's just a shame he can't play the field, even though they're trying it. He's listed as a left fielder now officially at AAA. But at the same time, another name down there at AAA that's also right-handed, that's kind of in the same boat, is Keaton Anthony, who was injured as well. This was supposed to be the big spring that he was going to show what he could do.
Right.
And many considered him as someone who had a shot to make the major leagues, and he himself gets hurt. But he's off to a pretty good start at AAA. He's batting .325, 5 home runs, 18 RBI, OPS over 1. in 77 at bats. Again, same kind of thing though. When they brought him back, he's kind of DH first base. He has not really had the experience in the outfield. So they've got a couple of right-handed bats down there, but they don't really have a position.
And I wonder, you talk about a team looking for a first baseman. I wonder in the interim, because maybe not even in the interim, because it's, more so probably long term. Obviously, the Angels, who we just talked about with Joe Adell, they have Nolan Chanawell at first base. I don't think he's going anywhere. But they signed Jorge Soler to a one-year deal to be their DH. He's now on the IL. They've brought Trey Mancini back up, who, awesome story. So happy to see him back in the big leagues for the first time in several years. But he's on a one-year deal as well. I wonder if the Angels, in a package, would have interest in Reyes being their DH for the remainder of the season, if he would be a player who could be part of that deal to acquire a Joe Adell.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of these teams, when they make these trades, they take pieces back just to fill their major league roster. And a lot of times they're ones they're just taking a flyer on. And someone like Reyes, who has minor league options, I mean, that could be a helpful player to a team like the Angels the next couple of years. So, yeah, first base is covered, but they still have the DH spot available. Although I think Mike Trout's going to need it a lot in the future.
Right.
But hey, why not? I mean, you know what? If you're the Angels, you need to take some talent back, and hopefully you hit on some of them.
Obviously, there's still, what do we have, like a month and a half till the trade deadline? I think we'll probably have better answers here, but I think the Phillies' options are going to be a little bit limited based on, what you brought up earlier in the show, is like the depth. Teams always want pitching, and I think that the Phillies overlapping like Venn diagram of like pitchers that other teams would want and pitchers that the Phillies are willing to move. It's a very thin margin in that overlapping Venn diagram.
Yeah, the Phillies were lucky last year. They had Mick Abel as kind of the piece that they could move, and that's how they were able to land Juan Duran. I mean, if it were this year, they're not getting Duran.
Yeah, you're probably right. I mean, because there's nobody, because they're not moving Painter, right? Because they don't have a choice. They want to continue to invest in Painter, and their starting pitching depth is extremely thin. But last year, you're right. Like, they had the ability to move Abel because they had Ranger Suarez was still here, and your other four guys were cemented in the rotation. That's a good point. I didn't think about it that way.
Yeah, you felt like you still had Painter beyond. So right now, there's nobody beyond.
Right. Yeah, your next step down, as you said, is Gage Wood, who has moved up quickly through the ranks, but he's not major league ready. I think they really like Cade Obermueller, who was their second-round pick last year, has started to pitch in Clearwater after missing basically the whole season last year and his first pro season. He's not ready, right? They signed, the 17-year-old kid from Korea who
Renteria. Oh no, I'm sorry. I thought you were going to Renteria.
Park, the pitcher, right?
Yeah.
I think he might be 18 now, right? He hasn't started his pro journey yet. They have a couple of, they like Matthew Fisher, who is in the developmental leagues, the summer leagues, right? So they have guys that they like in their pipeline, but it's way, way down the list. In that Reading to Lehigh Valley, it's pretty thin.
Yeah, Gene Cabrera, for example, fell off the face of the earth.
Yeah.
He was someone expected to make an impact this year. He did not. I mean, and of course we mentioned Aiden Miller. This is a lost season, which is unfortunate.
Yeah, it's becoming concerning.
And Moises Chasse, he should be working his way back from the major injury. So he was someone else that could be depth, but he's probably not going to make an impact this year.
So I've been saying this for a while now. They're going to continue to push him down the starter path. Chasse should be set up to be a closer. The stuff is legit. Now I don't know how it's going to look when he comes back from the elbow injury, but the stuff pre that was legit. I would like to see him get an opportunity to pitch in the back end of a bullpen.
Yeah, well, you know what? He'll hopefully make a professional appearance this year, and then maybe they'll have a better idea in the offseason what they can do with him. But it's a shame because he was very promising.
Well, they have a couple of guys in relief roles, right? Alex McFarland's been really, really good.
He could be moved too. I wonder if he would
it's
be
certainly possible
that would get some attention.
Wenwei Pan has made his return. They're really high on him. And I apologize. There is a guy, I forget who it is, a guy who is between AA and AAA this year in their minor leagues. I saw the stat the other day. It's 22 and a third scoreless innings this year so far. Not to be in the highly touted prospect conversation, but that's their bullpen, quote unquote, depth. So I think that in terms of relief depth, they have a decent look. In terms of starting depth, there's nothing.
Yeah, and Gage Wood might, depending on how things play out, I could see him making an appearance this year out of a bullpen or something like that. But I think they want to stick him stick out being a starter. But
for sure,
that would be his quickest path to the majors, I think, is in a relief role.
Well, a lot to unpack over the next several weeks as we get closer and closer to the trade deadline. Phillies go for a series sweep against the Miami Marlins today before they finally take on the New York Mets for a Thursday, Saturday, Sunday series with the World Cup taking over on Friday. So they split the series up, but they will play tomorrow and then off on Friday. Very weird, but World Cup dominates everything when it comes to town.
Yeah, it sure does. But I'll take the Friday off. I have a music gig, so I don't have to miss a Phillies game now.
You real quick, by the way, are you watching any of the World Cup? Are you a soccer guy?
I'm not that big a soccer guy. Of course, I watched Team USA the other night in their debut. My daughter's getting into it. She plays soccer. She's 9 years old, so trying to help keep her interest there. She's not into baseball or even softball. I was hoping she would be into softball, but nope. So, but she's into soccer, so I think that's kind of cool.
Well, it's been an exciting World Cup for the most part. I mean, Team USA was dominant in their win last Friday night. Lionel Messi, at 38 years old, scores a hat trick last night. There's been some really fun games. Holland is unbelievable. It's been a lot of fun, and I would say I'm a casual soccer fan. Like, I root for the Union. I follow the MLS. I understand who's good in the European leagues, but I'm not diehard like I am with baseball or football. But the World Cup, that it gets me going. I love it. I'll watch every game. I sat and watched Ivory Coast and Ecuador the other night. As soon as the Phillies were over, I turned that game on, and it was a blast. Ivory Coast scored a 91st minute winner. I don't know. I can't get enough of the World Cup. I love it.
Yeah, I mean, Miroslav Klose, my cousin. No, he's not really my cousin,
yes.
but the most famous person with my last name, long time a star for Germany, and then ended up on the coaching staff. But so once in a while, I would keep an eye on Germany. But but other than that, I never really had a big dog in the fight when it came to the World Cup. But I certainly talk about them in class enough when I'm teaching sports management courses, because it's hard not to study at least how big soccer is internationally.
For sure. Well, that'll pretty much do it for us here on the Run It Back podcast. This weekend coming up, as we said, the Mets come into town for the first series of the year against the New York Mets. Phillies have a chance today at 1 o'clock to sweep out the Miami Marlins. So for my partner, Frank Klose, I'm Tyler Zulli saying thank you so much for hanging out with us. If you're listening on any of the audio-only platforms, hit that 5-star review button. We'd really appreciate it. If you're watching on YouTube, smash the like button and subscribe to us as well. We'll be back next Wednesday for the next edition of the Run It Back podcast. And until that time, we'll talk to you later. See you.